Welcome in, travelers, to Spiritual Roots Podcast with me, Misty. Today I'm welcoming in Amanda. Amanda is the founder of Wild Willow Herbals and Wild Willow Farm. She's an herbalist, a shamanic Reiki master teacher, trauma-informed practitioner, and youth mentor. She leads operations, programming, and community wellness initiatives. A dedicated practitioner of holistic healing, Amanda blends herbalism, shamanic Reiki, and trauma-informed care to create a space for deep healing and connection. With over 2 decades of experience in human services, Amanda has worked in various roles, including peer and family support specialist, residential teacher, outreach specialist, youth mentor, therapeutic support specialist, and advocate. She has had the privilege of supporting individuals and families in vulnerable spaces, helping them navigate their wellness journeys in compassion and integrity. Amanda studied herbalism at Misty Meadows Herbal Center and earned her master teacher certification from Shamanic Reiki Worldwide. She is also trained and certified in trauma-informed practices, recognizing the profound impact trauma has on the body, mind, and spirit. Her work is rooted in safety, empowerment, and individualized healing, ensuring that each person who enters Wild Willow Farm feels supported in their unique path to wellness. At Wild Willow Farm, Amanda facilitates healing circles, private Reiki sessions, herbal workshops, and youth mentorship programs, fostering a space where community, education, and holistic healing thrive. She believes true healing happens when we cultivate a sense of belonging, honor our personal journeys, and reconnect with the wisdom of nature. Welcome in, Amanda.
Oh, thank you.
How are you?
Great. So happy to be here, happy to connect and kind of share my passion and connection with all things spirit. And I love the connection between spiritual roots and the root of spirituality.
Yeah.
It's one of those coinciding concepts, and I'm happy to be here to talk about it with you. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you on. I've been to one of your sessions, and it was amazing. It was a sound bath. It was beautiful. I'd never done it before.
We've been collaborating with a handful of practitioners around the state.
Yeah.
And we try to bring all of those modalities and practices to the farm. And we're still in our first. Last year was our first time really inviting the community in and having practitioners and sharing that space for that collaboration and that exchange. And we started off with the basics of like, what can we do to kind of blend those layers and those practices? And the sound bath, like you mentioned, was one of the ones that we thought would be a great starting point, and having yoga sessions and gatherings and healing circles. And things of that nature.
Oh, it was amazing. And your farm is so beautiful. They're located in Franklin, New Hampshire, for anyone who's listening, and we'll get your socials towards the end where people can contact you. But it's such a beautiful space. I love your house. Like when you walk into the community portion of the house, you walk into that kitchen that you have with the herbs and my God, it's so amazing.
Oh, thank you. I think that was one of the biggest surprises when a lot of people visit the farm. They're used to really like store settings or like center settings, and this is a really intimate space. And that's part of the medicine that comes with gathering here is we put a lot of intention into this. We live here and practice here, which a lot of people tend to try and keep separately, but we feel like that's a big part of that root and that connection. So when people come in, they're essentially coming into my home and keeping that space a presence and a sanctuary for everyone, and reminding them that it really starts within, and that's a reflection of the practice that I have with myself, and really modeling that for others and encouraging them to do the same. And it's that simple. It doesn't have to be extravagant or anything that's far away from your homestead.
It definitely feels like a home when you walk in. I remember when I first pulled up, because I had planned on coming to an event, but it didn't happen for whatever reason. And I remember pulling up, I was like, am I in someone's house? Because I'd never been there before. I was so scared. But it was wonderful when I finally get to come and enjoy it. And I brought a friend with me, and it was wonderful. So thank you for having the space. It's so amazing. It really is.
Pleasure. Yeah.
I was so excited that you accepted my invitation. So let's get right into it. What spiritual roots brought you to where you are now?
And again, I'm going to use that analogy of spiritual roots. Like in your podcast, it's kind of like the path, but I will
Yes.
bring that connection and overlap with the earth. And it really starts at the root within yourself. And I think it was a big part of that for me was remembering and really going back to yourself, because I think as we develop, and this is where some of that trauma informed care will come into my practices, that it starts, in conception and remembering that consciousness from day one. But as we develop, we're constantly taking in and processing things around us. And depending on our ability and capacity to do that processing, it can take us further and further away from that root and away from our own consciousness. It turns into a lot of survival techniques instead of thriving and being in that stillness that often gets shattered through day-to-day traumas. And we have the big T traumas and the little T traumas, and really learning how to center.
How did you get into this study? Like, you became the Reiki master, you specialize in trauma, herbals. How did you get into that? Like, where did that start for you?
That's a great question. So I would say probably back in around, so my first drive to really connect with these, people would call them alternative practices, but they really are, century old. So it's kind of like the original practices. I was probably 11 years old, and we used to go camping in Maine every summer in Scarborough, Maine, and we would go to Bailey's Campground. And during the season when we were in town, we would go to flea shops and thrifting, and I was at a really large flea market. I mean, it was like miles long, and out of the whole area, I came across one deck of tarot cards. I had no idea what they were. I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, so very religious, structural household. And I don't think my father knew what they were either, because I brought them home. And from that moment on, I just built that connection with them. And again, I didn't know. A lot of times we don't know why we're drawn or pulled into a certain direction, but it is that remembering that's bringing us there and back to that. And then fast forward, well into my I had a moment where my pillow blew up in my room and feathers just started flying everywhere. And a friend of mine said, well, you have a message, from your spirit and from ancestors that are connecting. And she started breaking down, what each feather and what each color meant. And that really ignited that curiosity. And I just kind of dove into it from there. I started to study herbalism in 2021 at Misty Meadows. And in conjunction with that, I started studying Reiki with Shamanic Reiki Worldwide and did my master teacher programming with them. And both of those practices, especially in conjunction with one another, really helped me remember that having that connection with nature, and not only understanding the consciousness and connection with nature, but the connection and work with energy, and how all of those things with our mind, body, spirit really keep us in line with that path and that route.
Yes, that is so beautiful. I love that you use the feather pillow as a type of divination. That's amazing.
Yeah, and once I don't, so that
is
friend of mine was a Reiki practitioner, and she was going through her Reiki programming, and a few times she practiced with me, and the things that she said and the response that I had to the work really helped me understand, and again, referring to how that trauma work and the energy work is interconnected. I had such a strong response to the practice when I would go in for sessions with this friend that it was undoubtable. For me, it was something that I knew I got more curious with, because I thought, well, if I'm really feeling this connected and having such a strong response, there's something there. Like it's a lot of people, again, depending on at what point you enter those concepts in your life or they enter your life. Some people think it's too woo-woo, but where I had such a strong response, I thought there's something I want to get more curious with.
I love that you followed your inner voice and went with it, because look at where you are now. You've really created something pretty amazing, and it's really unique to our area. I mean, I'm like an hour away, but it's not too far. That's still
Right.
very local. That's easy to do, and you just have such an amazing grounds. Do you grow all your herbs? When I showed up, I saw all of your raised beds. Do you grow all of your herbs there too?
So that's a great question. And that's actually one of the most common questions we get, because a lot of times people think like Wild Willow Farm, like it's an animal farm. So we're actually not an animal farm, and not even entirely an herbal farm at this point. We source a lot of our herbs with an online co-op, and that's one of the most imperative parts of your herbal practice, is really, if you're not going to source your herbs yourself, then really know where they're being sourced. So a lot of mine I get from Frontier Co-op, which is an online herbal co-op where herbs come from all over the world, not just the country. And each herb that is shipped to you will tell you where it is sourced. And then Mountain Rose Herbs is another great source. Mm-hmm. Starship or Starseed Botanicals is another good one. But really being mindful. I often, when people ask why I don't source them all here, I work with my practice in conjunction with my full-time work in community and human services. So with the amount of herbs that I use for my practice, it really would be a full-time gig to grow and source everything here. But the raised beds that you referred to, we are in our second year of flower farming. We really bring that flower essence into the herbal and spiritual practice that we have here. And that has been quite a commitment, a much larger one. When I had the thought to blend the worlds together, I thought, oh, this is great. This will be like really like backseat, like it'll be such a fun hobby to me. But it really is almost a full-time commitment during grow season, and really navigating that. And this year I took a break from the workshops and the classes and gatherings to really build my grounding with the flower portion of it and the farming portion.
Yeah, I love that. Taking time to cultivate something. I love it.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I'm so excited. I can't wait to come back. I can't say it enough. It's just such a great space. So what were some obstacles that you ran into starting your path?
That's a great question, because I feel like there's a point when you start practicing with spirituality that you really meet a crossroads. And for me, that one was those spiritual boundaries, those emotional, psychological boundaries, like really being able to, a large part of spirituality and the work with everyone, even with everyone having their own authentic path, is those exchanges with other people and other humans, other situations. And for me, it was keeping and maintaining those boundaries and really observing without absorbing, being able to hold that container and that space for others without taking on kind of their work. And one could even argue the word like their burdens. And a burden in the sense that, like, there are no bad parts, right? But burden in the sense that it's a lot of work. It's like offering to run a marathon for someone and you've never put on running shoes. So really just being able to hold that space for others, model that work by doing it yourself. That's a big one that I'm learning right now, is that it's one thing to really have that practice in theory, but having it in practice and modeling that for others is really the most supportive way that we can have that mutual collective exchange with everyone.
Yeah. How do you protect yourself? Just quickly, like when you're doing Reiki on someone or have just an event going on where there's more than one person you're working with, how do you personally protect yourself when you do that? Yeah, you don't have to tell me your full ritual if that's what you do, but just if you could touch on something, because I think it's important to bring that up when people are doing some type of energy work. Even if that's reading cards for someone, you still have to protect your energy. So what are some things that you do?
Yeah, that's another great question, and one that actually comes up pretty frequently. And I've come across people that have come in front of me and said, I'm really in an environment or a space or a situation where I'm constantly absorbing the negative energy around me. People more often than not lead to isolation because of that factor, because they feel like, man, I just can't. It gets to the level of functioning where they're just not able to get above that processing. And the biggest thing that I could suggest, or at least for me, is to remember that, like, even if I'm feeling it or picking up on it, like, if you go to the stillness of your breath, go to the simplicity of your presence, like, I am here, I am now, I am safe, like, really tune into those affirmations because there's no avoiding. It's almost like if you're using your eyes and you're looking forward and there's something right in front of you, but you're like, no, I don't see this. Like, I'm going to look right through it. And you can train your brain to do that for sure. But energy is powerful, and we are constant magnets and exchanges for everyone. So really just tuning into that, the stillness and the presence of the moment. And that is where you will build on that. And the more you can practice that, the more organic it becomes, where it's not even a thought or a practice, it's automatic. It's just a part of your being.
How do you clear your energy after a session? What do you use, like selenite wands? Do you use crystals, herbs? How do you cleanse?
So, one of the best practices that I learned through Shamanic Reiki worldwide with Llyn Roberts and her team is aimless wandering. And again, they pulled practices from all over the world, centuries old. But aimless wandering is when you just kind of go out to the earth. I do this before and after sessions and gatherings, and get your feet right into the earth. And in that magnetic exchange, because there's a frequency. All energy and consciousness has a frequency, and often that was one of the things this morning. Like, I was trying to remain grounded and get the nervous jitters out of me, and you just go out and wander, and wherever you're guided to go, and that's where you're supposed to be in that moment. And then for saging and smudging, I do grow sage here at the farm, and I make my own bundles, and I smudge with Palo Santo and things like that. Just, again, some of those ancestral rememberings and things that we bring in. And it's when we do a clearing, remember that everything is very intentional. There are no coincidences. So again, remembering if we're feeling overwhelmed, overstimulated, not really as grounded as we would like to be, there's always an intention there. So really lean into that as well. When someone leaves, if they came in and they had a really, one would say, like, heavy or tough session, automatically people would be like, oh, I have to clear that. I have to get that out of here. But lean into it, because they came with you for a reason. And sometimes they're modeling to you things that you really do need to lean into. And that's a part of your healing and your process just as much as you're a part of theirs.
Wow. I never thought of that, because you're so right. I read for people cards, and I always just cleanse myself. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Wow, I never thought of that. That's wonderful. But going back to going outside and just aimless wandering, I love that idea. It's so simple, and it's easy to do, and just go see where your spirit takes you.
Yeah, there's no wrong way to do it. I think that's the other part about spirituality. People think that there has to be like a magic wand, and it has to be really, especially with social media. And don't get me wrong, social media is a big part of my process, both with my farm events, my workshops, but also with my practice. Like, part of what we do is connecting, and in order to connect, I'm constantly observing and taking things in. But I think it can also have that counter effect where it's really glamorized, and spirituality has to look a specific way or be a certain path. And with aimless wandering, it's genuinely aimless. There's no wrong way to do it. It's very simple. The simplicity of it is very intentional as well, because very little effort on your part. Just go outside and walk. And if you're in a space, I understand not all areas that's possible, but you probably don't have to go too far just to find a little spot of grass.
Right.
And that wandering can look like just being still as well.
Yeah, or just go touch a tree if you're out in the urban areas.
Yes.
Yeah. Forest bathing is something I'm fascinated with. That's a great topic, too.
That is one of my favorite. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I think in terms of, there's all dozens of ways that we can appreciate nature and really honor nature and connect with it. But I think in terms of, like, my go-to, the forest bathing would be just being there. Like going on hikes with friends, it's always an interesting adventure because when you connect a hiker with a forest bather, they're trekking their miles and they're
Yes.
really going. And I'm sitting there like taking pictures of the mushrooms and sitting with the flowers and really admiring the rays through the trees. And it's always fun when you get the two together because they help keep me in line and I help slow them down.
Yeah, that's a great balance.
Yeah.
I love it. So, forest bathing is just so fascinating because it does give off a type of chemical. The trees, don't they? I don't remember the name of it right now, but it interacts with us and it can be like antibacterial, and it's like some trees put off that type of
It is
what do I
much
want to
like
say?
how we get vitamin D from the sun.
Yeah.
We're constantly taking in and absorbing that medicine that comes just from connecting with nature. And even if we're not able to get our feet into the ground, just having it in the elements all around us, we're constantly absorbing that because everything has a consciousness, which equals energy. And we're constantly, just as we would understand the concept of absorbing a negative energy from someone, we're absorbing that healthy, positive energy when we're in nature.
Yes.
So it works identically the same. Yeah.
Yeah, you breathe it in.
Yeah.
Inhale it and exhale it. They give us our oxygen and we give them what they need. It's so amazing to me that we're so tightly connected to nature. And I brought this up on one of my other guest episodes with my friend Dawn. And we briefly were talking about pyramids and how at one time you can physically see how we were all just connected at one point in time, just by buildings, let alone land. And I just love that thought so much and how we are just really are connected, no matter how far disconnected we feel. Like we were saying, just go out into nature and breathe in that air because they're giving to you and you're giving back. And I just think that's so incredible. And I just love it so much.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that because the pyramids really show us how far back these teaching and practices go. Because again, I think a lot of people, especially with Western medicine and all of the advancements that we're having in psychology and medicine, mental health, all of the things, I think there's still a level of woo-woo when in terms of spirituality and energy and things of that nature. And there really is room for both. Science is saying like, how is this happening? And spirituality is, why is this happening? And they really are saying the same thing. They're mirroring one another. But when you speak of concepts like the pyramids and things of that nature, it shows you how far back this concept goes. And it's as old as time. And there really is room to have space for both. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was, and I love looking at the stars. I adore looking up at the night sky. I have for as long as I can remember. And since living my parents own this house. The listeners know I dwell on about that story. But since my parents started living here where I now live, I used to love going on their back deck because I was able to connect back with the stars and look. And last night I'm looking, as winter's starting to come, you start to notice the cycle of the constellations that start to become more apparent. Like I saw Sirius in the sky, so then Orion's coming back. And I just love how we're connected. I just can't get enough of it. It really lights my fire inside, and it's so wonderful. And I love this conversation that we're having. I adore this.
Great. And that interconnection is what I refer to as the knowing, and really to refer to the question of like, how do you clear space? How do you clear your energy? It's really going back to that knowing that we're all connected. And again, even if I had someone that came in with the big T traumas and I was supporting their process, they're just a part of mine as I am theirs. So it is all connected. Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you have regular customers that come to you, or regular patients? I don't know what you would call them necessarily, but regular folks, we'll say.
Yeah. So this is where the practices do get a little complicated in the sense of by state and by law, there are certain licenses that need to be held in order to use certain verbiages. So therapeutic and therapy is not something that I would connect to my practice because in the state of New Hampshire, Again, having those degrees and those licenses really are the differing factor. So they're not my patients because I'm not a doctor or anything of that nature. More just humans coming, and I have familiar faces that I do see on a regular basis. Even with I call it my apothecary, but in terms of herbalism, we have to be very mindful because I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not a doctor, but I'm someone who has been practicing specifically with herbalism. That practice goes way back. My oldest son is 21. I gave birth and became a mother in 2004, and just knowing I didn't want to be vulnerable to modern medicine, and especially around age 5 with those well-child checkups and really understanding what's being said and how to be mindful and proactive with our health. So that herbalism goes back decades for me, and it really, again, is just a curiosity, and in terms of like, where do people start? Like, what advice would you give them if they want to go down the same path with that? We mentioned herbal allies, which is a verbiage that's used pretty commonly in herbalism. And an herbal ally would be a plant that's kind of calling to you. And for me, becoming a mother was that curiosity. So I went in a very specific direction with that practice. But if I was someone just coming in and saying, I really want to start studying and practicing, where do I start? What plant is calling out to you? What do you see as you're driving down the road? If you follow the same route to work every day and the same plant is calling out to you. A big one that's super commonly known that a lot of people consider it to just be a weed on the side of the road is a mullein. And that was one of my first allies. Yeah. And when you start really studying not only like the medicinal side of plant medicine, the essence and the spiritual side, and mullein, as it stands tall and strong, reminds us, of our the strength in our back and really standing strong and having that confidence in that strength to tune into that strength, and it also cleans out the lungs, which works with grief and guilt and things of that nature. And so really tuning into those allies and studying it until you have the confidence that you are connected to that essence and that everything about all things of the mullein or whatever that plant is, and then move on to the next one. And as you're moving through that and the plants are calling to you, it's organic to your life and where you are at that point in your life. Yeah. And that really makes it so organic. And you can sit down for sure and like old school, like learn all the plants A through Z in alphabetical order and all the things of each one. And that's great. If that is how it's calling to you, by all means, that's how you practice. But if you are struggling and you're not sure where to start with your allies and really let that flourish and thrive from there.
Yes. And I second that so much. Because just going out, going back to when we were saying go out and do aimless wandering, make it a practice where you maybe bring a notebook with you and recognize what's at your feet.
Yes.
You know, I was out for a walk, I don't know, a year or so ago, and I noticed columbine on the ground. I've never seen columbine in the wild. I had to take a picture and figure out what it was because I'm on my walk. Like I was out, I was doing my thing. But I still take in what's around me, and if something strikes me, I'll note it and go back and look. And it's moments like that I think really people can dive deep into something that, calls to them. And I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. So
yes, amazing. And you just mentioned something that's really a great tool for us in again, really blending those modern practices with the ways of the earth. And one of those is most of us, I think, today can say we have a cell phone. Yes. And those cameras are fantastic. And really being able to utilize that modern technology, it is as simple as going for a walk. And with aimless wandering, one of the verbiages we love with shamanic Reiki is wakas. And wakas are those allies that call to us when we're practicing the aimless wandering. And with herbalism, it would be like, what plant is sticking out at you? If you don't have to be an expert to study. So take a photo of that plant, go back, study that plant, connect with it that way, and have that notebook. Journaling is one of the best things to resort back to. You
Yes.
can master the plant profiles, and really a plant profile is how you break down what parts of the plant you're using, what the action of the plant is. So just start by journaling the name once you figure it out, and really dive in from there. And that's how you can build your practice. There are really great areas to study, and great elders in the community that can help you along your way. If you're really struggling to ask yourself, like, there's so much, where do I start? Where do I do this? Start with your everyday practice.
Yeah.
And just really be still and take note, because that is your practice and there's intention with it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Start small and grow from there.
Yep.
Because it can be overwhelming. We've said it before in prior episodes, especially when people are like, oh, I want to know all the things.
Right.
Just start small. Start
Yep.
small. A notebook in your feet and you're ready
Yes.
to go. And a
Yes,
pen.
100%. Yep.
I love this so much. I was wondering, so let me ask you, what books inspired you also?
So this, I have to be honest with you, this is a hard one to answer, because trying to narrow it down,
Yeah.
because I am almost, I would border on level of hoarder of books. So what I'm going to do is show a handful of books that I pulled from my series, and just show you ones that I thought would be the most, they have really impacted my life. And I think if people were to say, like, what's some great literature, like another, again, starting point, where should I start? I would say these would be within my top 10. So I'm going to pull them out. It's Women Who Run with the Wolves. This is another great one. And especially with it's 2025, I think women are still blazing that trail of rewriting what a female archetype is. And it's, again, going back to that remembering and that wildness, and being able to authentically move through the world with that wild.
Yes.
And it has a lot of reference to that trauma work, and how it is connected, and how to do that work authentically with being as wild as we can, and giving ourselves permission to do that. And really do it with a lot of pride, and a lot of gratitude, and that strength. Yeah. And then Braiding Sweetgrass it's another great one that refers to that trauma work, and science and shamanism, and braiding the two together, and remembering that they are mirroring one another. And there is a way to hold space for both of them. And again, really respecting all dynamics, and learning each other's languages, and how to braid all of the things together. Yeah. And then Shape Shifting into Higher Consciousness from Llyn Roberts. She's the founder of Shamanic Reiki Worldwide, and that talks a lot about our everyday shape shifting, and that stillness and that breath, and again, not making it too complicated in how we shape shift through the world on an everyday basis. It's not that I'm shape shifting physically from a bunny to a horse. Shape shifting in that consciousness.
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to our healing, and holding space for others to do the same. And then Shamanic Reiki, also with Llyn Roberts. That is, again, talking about energy and shamanism, and blending the earth practice and energy practice, and really with intention, and how the two complement one another, and how we can bring that practice to our day-to-day lives. I think what I love about all of these books that I'm referring to is they really help us bring these concepts down to a simplistic manner, so that it's not something that we have to really try too hard to hold space for. They all reference how these are very basic practices and concepts, and things that can be a part of our day-to-day life, and really break down how we can do that in a way that's digestible, because we all are very busy. We all are holding space in our minds, and in our energy fields, and really remembering how to make that work.
Yeah.
The feeling of what happens. This is a great one, because it talks about the psychological and physiological concept of consciousness, and modern day practices and concepts in psychology, and again, referencing that trauma and how that affects our spiritual practice, and how to not only hold space for our trauma, but the traumas of those around us, and really connecting those worlds and being able to, again, focus on that gratitude, the cycle of the back and forth exchange. And yeah. And then Anatomy of the Spirit is another great one. And this talks about all things religion and spirituality together and really blending those worlds. Like the Anatomy of the Spirit really speaks for itself. And it talks about Christianity and Judaism and all of the things that really answer those questions of like, is there one path and is there one direction and is one correct over the other? And that really holds space for all of them and specifically references the 7 chakras in that manner of how there's space for all of them within those fields. Yeah.
I love all of that. And I'm definitely going to get a couple of those books. I have Women Who Run with the Wolves. That was first introduced to me in like 2019, 2020.
Oh, beautiful.
I wasn't in the headspace to accept the information that it was providing me. And what's funny...
And we're conditioned not to. It's funny that you say it. Because we really are conditioned to not understand it or process it. Yeah.
So, and it was funny to me because you were the 4th person to bring it up in a week. Because I was asking you about books and you had given me the list. And I was like, okay, it's time. So I recently pulled it back out and I just opened up to, I don't know, the middle of the book. And what I read was just, it hit me so hard. And I was like, okay, it's time. It's time to read.
And that's your spirit. That is you remembering and coming back to yourself. And that's a beautiful example of how that works and how we all mimic that for each other.
Yeah, and it's hard to do that sometimes because we just sometimes want to resist it when really we need to lean in like you were saying earlier.
Yep.
Because I think, and I'm learning this now, when you're aligned with yourself, even for a minute, it leads down the path that you're supposed to be headed down.
Yep.
And that's beautiful to me, and it's fascinating. I've loved all of this.
Yes, same. And that's such a great concept because I think what happens is, specifically in terms of trauma, we have a sense of control, right? Because we feel safe with that control. And that control is just us trying to reassure ourselves we're safe, we're okay, we're grounded. But when we let go of that, and it's a tight grip, like we hold on to that control. I mean, as much as we hold on to our own breath, I would arguably say, but the second we're able to let go of that control, we go back to that remembering. And we use that control in dozens of different ways through our professional fields, our romantic fields, our family fields, our friend field, like, because we think that if we can get everything a very specific way, we will be safe. All is copacetic.
Right.
But we forget, and we get very far from the concept that letting go of that, you attract everything that is supposed to come to you.
Yes.
And you're able to settle into what is unfolding every day. And by trying to control that, we miss out on all the possibilities that could be, that are already unfolding for us as well. And not only it's an injustice to us, it's an injustice to those around us. Because then we're also kind of controlling and navigating that path for them as well. And so it's really a double injustice to that concept.
Yeah, that's a great point. I never thought of that because we always just think that we're controlling ourselves. But when really we're not, that's a great point, Amanda, that the actions that I take affect my husband, they affect my household. Yeah. That's such a great point. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, we come into our paths with a very specific intention. And that intention is supposed to unfold naturally and organically. Yeah. And when we kind of grip on that control, we forget that everyone else is a part of that path. It's not just us on it. So we're also changing the dynamics of everyone else that's included in that original and organic intention.
Yeah. It's so true. Wow. I never thought of it like that, honestly. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because and when you release and let go of control, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it just unlocked something in my brain. and it was about breath work. Wow, that just blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. And do you offer breath work at the farm?
We do. Ideally, I was hoping to have our fall and winter workshop schedule already completed. I was really excited. The end of summer got here. I was ready to launch the workshops again, and we made it through October. I had everything initially scheduled for November and December, right into next spring. But then I had to release that control, and I thought I wanted to have everything detailed right down to the minute, that I forgot to leave space for others to come in and offer those same practices and those same offerings. So that is one of the things that we're currently working on, is collaborating and connecting to other practitioners. And part of that intention is the breath work, the somatic movement. And I'm hoping to be a large part of that collaboration with instructors coming in and facilitating those practices and gatherings together. But that breath work really is a big part of it, because especially in terms of when you have those reactive moments, I like to use the verbiage reactive, because we respond when we're grounded and we react when we're struggling.
Yeah.
And I think one of the first things that happen when we start to react is we hold our breath. We're breathing unconsciously and out of rhythm, and those things really have a much larger, it's not going to give us the reaction we're looking for, right? Like when we start holding our breath, we're not going to get any more grounded than if we were to just sit with it. And that somatic movement is a way to get that stuff out in a healthy and intentional way. And yeah, I think breath work is a great thing to bring to everyone's day-to-day practice, and we're happy to really start offering that here at the farm.
Yeah, I look forward to that. I would really enjoy that, so I can't wait to see that on the events page.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun, and I'm so happy you mentioned it. There's a lot of fun practices that we can integrate with the circles and the gatherings and the ceremonies, and really just figuring out how to navigate that and bring in that collaboration. In terms of the scheduling, I really thought, like, if I can just get everything launched into the community, it would give people something to schedule and kind of plan around. But I was missing out that collaboration component.
Yeah.
And really holding space for others to come in. And that's a big part of what we do here. It's that community and connection component. And that is a large part of the practice here. So we're really going back to the drawing board. I'm meeting over the next week with various instructors and practitioners, and really working on getting that schedule complete. Yeah.
Oh, this is so exciting. I can't wait. I'm so excited for you and the farm.
Thank you. It's been so magical. And you're just as much, Misty, a part of that magic, because like I said, that collaboration is the entity that is the farm.
Yeah.
And without you guys, it wouldn't be possible. So I'm just as grateful and excited to see you and keep making those connections. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. I did want to touch on, I know I'm kind of backpedaling because I'm interested in shamanic Reiki. So I want to touch on that for just a minute, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
What does that entail? I have had Reiki done. It was mind-blowing, the energy that moves throughout your body when that happens. But what is shamanic Reiki? What's the difference between just going in and getting a Reiki session versus that?
That's a really great question. And thank you for asking it. I think in terms of Reiki, it's a basic practice of energy work, right? Emotion is energy in motion. And that's as scientific as you can get without a response of if someone said, what is Reiki? And Reiki is just holding, as a Reiki practitioner, I hold the container or the space for someone to come in and really get that emotion and energy moving, often throughout the day in our day-to-day lives. And again, in terms of those little T traumas and the big T traumas, little T traumas would be like someone cut you off in traffic, or you're stuck in a car accident, traffic, and you're late for work. And I wouldn't even refer to those as like little T traumas, but those little T triggers, I guess.
Yeah.
Compounded to little T traumas. Like if that happened every day, like your nervous system is already dysregulated, forget, expecting it at that point. And those big T traumas, abuse, neglect, you're actually in a car accident, a death of a loved one. A lot of times people don't refer to disconnect with a relationship as a trauma, but depending on how that relationship was, that could be a significant trauma for some. And with Reiki, when those triggers happen, we tend to hold that in our body, those emotions, and we will hold on to a lot for a long time. It's much easier to suppress than it is to process. So Reiki just helps get that stuff moving. A lot of times trauma can also be what we're observing. We don't have to go through it ourselves for it to affect us. If our current events is a great example of how that works. We're seeing things happening in our nation and our communities that even if we're not the ones directly affected, we're observing it. And we're seeing some of those injustices, and that's really affecting us. So those are emotions that we tend to store and hold in our body because life doesn't give us a lot of opportunity to process. So we just keep going and we push it down and we push it down. And Reiki really helps us move some of that through our body. And a Reiki practice not only is a practice you have with yourself over time, it's a very intimate connection for you to get that energy working. It's a lot like seeing a chiropractor where you wouldn't go once and assume my back and everything is aligned, I'm fine. It's something you have to really do regularly. And that's different depending on what level and capacity you have. And I wouldn't even necessarily say the need, because we all need to hold that space and have that space with ourselves, and having a practitioner support that process it looks different for everyone. So in terms of shamanic Reiki and what does that really mean and how is that different from the basic concept of Reiki, is it kind of blends that energy work with the energy and consciousness of the earth. Shamanism really takes it back again to the root, and honoring and practicing with all elements and all essence of the earth. And shamanic Reiki really blends those two practices together into one concept. So what does a shamanic Reiki session look like for me? When my participants come or people come to the farm for a session, we start with that aimless wandering. I encourage them to build that connection with the earth right away.
Yeah.
Keep an eye out for those wakas. What is calling out to you? What can you bring into this session that will help support that process and guide you through that session? So we start with that connection to the earth right away as soon as they come to the farm. And again, with the flower farming, that was a big part of that intention. Yeah. Flower essence is such a powerful medicine and such a powerful energy, and all of the herbs have just as many properties and intentions. But I was really drawn to flowers and really bringing those in. So I have a lot of participants that come to the farm that really have that access to the flowers and are able to bring them into session. And then I use shamanic drumming as a huge part of my practice. And while I have someone, I have a massage table, the participant will fully clothed be on the table, and we start with those wakas and really bringing them into that session and connecting the participants to those. And then I go right into my drumming and rattling, and I've been studying with a drum apprenticeship this year and with Robert Murphy. He's out of Canada. It's a year-long apprenticeship, and the drumming is really that connection to the animal and the earth and the rhythm, and really bringing that into practice. And we're crafting and creating these drums with hides and with trees and connecting spirit to all of those bodies and bringing them into the essence and rhythm of the practice. And that helps with the energy. Drumming and any musical vibration, again, in terms of energy and vibration, it really helps move things that are stagnant and stuck. And in Reiki, it never goes any further than you'll allow it to go. You'll never leave a session and think to yourself, I'm really not okay with what just happened, because you get out of it what you put into it. So I'm just holding the container, you're doing all the work. So what happens is only what you will allow to happen and what you intend to happen. And that's why it really does look different for everyone. Having that regular consistency is key for anyone. But there are people that have come in once and they feel like, okay, this has really unlocked a lot. I can autonomously continue my practice from here. And that's a beautiful thing. It is a practice where it's not dependent on having a practitioner really guide that for you.
Yeah.
We just hold that space when it's needed. Yeah.
I love every single thing you just said. I love that you start with aimless wandering and then bring in the wakas. I'm fascinated with wakas. I love this whole thing. I cannot wait to... I really want to do this because this is so fascinating and it sounds like an amazing session. And just, you would get so much out of it. Like you said, as long as you get what you give.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated. That is so beautiful, Amanda. What an amazing thing to offer. And the drumming, there's nothing better than a good drum session. Just to sit with drums and just listen to that beat, getting back to, you know, the heartbeat of Mother Earth and, you know, getting in sync with that. I attended a powwow once in the drummings. I couldn't get over it. It was just so beautiful. I cried. It was so beautiful to me.
It's so moving. I often have such a strong response to drumming.
Yeah.
And it does, water is a beautiful element for transition. And often I will do a big release through tears. And it is another one of those things where you have such a big response that you're like, they're onto something there.
Yeah.
Like my body is physiologically responding in such a strong way. There were times where, you know, silencing the drummers was a thing. And, you know, the medicine women were being hung and things were, because it was too woo-woo even back then. And I think that speaks volumes to how powerful and strong the practices are, and how we have to really commit to that spiritual path and really nourish those roots and stand true in that power. And it speaks for itself, like you said. When you have those strong reactions to the practices, that speaks volumes.
It really does. And it's really... it hurts my soul, and that, as corny as that sounds, that these practices were pushed away. Yeah. It really makes me want to cry because it's so unfair that whoever decided to do these things, that they felt they had the power to suppress such a beautiful practice where you're just connecting to where you live. And connecting to others around you. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The only thing that will come from that is good. And it just infuriates me that it had to be pushed down and that, you know, our First Nations people were wronged in such a way that I'm getting chills as we're talking about this. I'm getting like a visceral reaction of our conversation.
And that goes back to that need for control, right? I think when you really dive deep into all of the practices, they're really all kind of having the same message, just speaking different languages. And in terms of, you know, silencing one over the other, that really was that need for control. And it had a lot to do with territory, you know, centuries ago, and really utilizing those resources in those territories and dominating those areas with those practices. And I've come through my life, one of the best parts of my practice is that exchange and interaction with those around me. They're such a big part of what brought me to where I am today. And I've loved devout Catholics, and I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, and I have non-denominational friends, and I have people who have their spirituality and their religion is such a strong part of who they are. And just being able to hold space for all of them. And I think especially today in a time where we're asking for those really defined lines of you're this or you're that.
Yes.
You feel this way or you feel that way. It's really taking us far from that connectedness and that oneness and how we really are all connected. And even if those messages are showing up to us in ways that are causing us to be reactive, I would even go back to that reference of being reactive. Where's that reaction coming from? What is it teaching us? And being able to have that gratitude, you know, braiding sweetgrass, it really focuses on that reciprocity and that gratitude for all things around us, and even those challenging moments, and even those people. Again, referencing social media and seeing some of those lines that are being divided. And I've had childhood friends that I watched grow up together, so intertwined and so connected. And then you bring in concepts like politics and really having that divide and really standing firm in that belief. And it's a beautiful thing to be firm in what you believe and staying authentic and really holding that boundary. That's a beautiful concept. But we really miss the point where we forgot to hold space for other people's beliefs. And
Yes.
it's no different than hanging the medicine women or burning down, the drummers and their gathering sanctuaries. And we're still doing that today. Make no mistake. It just looks a lot different. Yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. I think it's just a time for us to just reconnect, recalibrate, and just get back out into nature. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
It really is. And I think that's where I would like to leave this, is just as the message is just get back to nature, get back to yourself, and just reconnect. Even if it's in a simple way.
It's all a part of the remembering, and Mother Earth will help us do that and bring us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She will hold you. Just lay on her for a little while and you will feel it. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Well, where can people find you, Amanda? What are your socials? Where are you on Instagram? Where are you at? Where can people find you?
So right now I am primarily on Facebook.
Okay.
I have Instagram and TikTok listed on my business cards, but I am very 1980s. And my introduction to technology was the Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
So again, in that collaboration, I'm still building a team that can help me with my online presence. But as far as workshops and events, Facebook would be probably the best place to get that scheduling. And then we're on Eventbrite. We use that for some of our events as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been really great. I hope I can have you on again sometime in the future, because I would love that. There's so many more things that we could talk about.
Oh, 100%. And even having you come to one of the workshops or classes and have that a part of the podcast, and really
I would love that.
Overlapping those worlds. We would love to. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be so great. Well, thank you again for coming on. This has been so fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming along for the ride, travelers. If you're enjoying the show, please share, like, or leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, or come join me over on Patreon, where you'll get show updates and have early access to new episodes every Thursday. You can also find me on Buy Me a Coffee. If you have ideas for the show or would like to say hello, you can email me at spiritualrootspodcast@gmail.com. Please keep sharing the show so we can keep finding our spiritual roots together.